all the videos I've watched when I want to learn something, my favorite ones are the ones that just get to the point. And what I'm making here, I wanted to make cheap and heavier arrows for my airbow. The ones that come with it are about 75 bucks for 6 of them, and that's kind of crazy. Plus, I think they're too light. I was hoping a heavier one would make it a little bit more quiet, and I think it does. Now, what I've got here is an Easton aluminum arrow. This one is a 22-15 light, and it took me a while to figure out what fit snugly on the barrel. I don't know if snugly is a word, but you get the idea. 22-15s give a good fit, and they shoot surprisingly well. They're very, very accurate. I'm sure they're more accurate than the ones that came with it. I think the feathers stabilize it better, and I think the weight helps. Now, what I've done here is I've got some 22-16s that seem like they give a better fit on the barrel. And what I've done is they're plenty long enough. The ones that you get are about 26 and a quarter. And these ones here that I'm doing are, right now it's way over 26. And what I've done was just cut the very tip of it off, because when they make these, they smash the aluminum. They must grip it with something when they're making them, and that catches on the barrel when you slide it over the barrel. So I cut just the very tip off, and I cut the end of that off just because this type of arrow doesn't go all the way through. And because it's sliding over the barrel, you want to deburr it. At least the inside. The outside doesn't really matter. And I like to, because it's sliding over the barrel, I like to take a punch rod and get all that dust and crap out of there. And these 22-16s, I'll show you the 22-15. It sits on there really good too. You can see it bounce. See that? You can see it bounce before it touches the fletching. And you can hear it pop off. And that's your 22-16. It's not going to bounce because I cut the end of it off. But that's a good fit too. It's a little bit tighter than those. So I'm going to make the exact same arrow that I did here. I've got 175 grain tips on there. I've got a reflective wrap. I think those are 5-inch feathers. And I've made the collar. It's not really a knock. It's more of like a collar on the back of this. I did it with painter's tape so it wouldn't leave gunk on the arrow. The sticky glue off of tape or something like that. So it's easy to peel off. It's easy to adjust. And I went with the green one instead of the blue just because of the diameter. The width. I just cut directly down the middle of that, centered as best I could, just eyeballing it. And with a wrap for this wrap I got on there, I cut 4.5 inches. Now remember, I cut that right down the middle in half and doubled it up. And with a wrap on it, I took 2 inches off that half. So you guys do the math or do it however you want to do it. Now, the ones that it came with, those collars seem kind of tight going in there, tighter than I think they need to be. And when you wrap your own, you just make them as tight as you want them. Obviously tight enough so they won't fall out, and you don't want it so tight that it slows your arrow down. And I think that's why these heavier arrows are even faster in the same weight as the carbons. I don't know if the aluminum's slicker or I'm just not getting it to pinch as tight as the factory ones because I didn't want it to. or the arrows, the fletching, looking down inside the front of this thing, it looks like the plastic fletchings are coming into contact good enough to rub off on the inside of this. That might be putting the brakes on those arrows, because these don't do that like a rubber fletching would. So they seem to be shooting very fast for as heavy as they are. And the only thing with putting these on is there's a little bit of a trick, and you can use whatever you come up with. And I've just taken a piece of plastic tubing, stick the arrow through there, and you guys do, if you don't like it, don't do it. Put some other kind of fletching on, do whatever works for you, but I like how this is working for me. You put that on there. Just take and stuff this plastic tubing in there so the fletchings go past it. Push it through, take it off, seat it in there. Just got a snug fit, and yeah, it works really, really well. Now, a couple of tips on making them. Like I said, this one here is a 2215, and I wanted to try the 2216s just because it was a tighter fit. I'll compare it velocity wise with the other ones. Those that I've already made there, I mean, they shoot really, really well. A circle at 50 yards that is a little bit bigger than a quarter, it hits them every time. Now, the first one of these that you're going to want to make, you're going to want to leave it a little bit long, because what you're going to want to do, at least what I did, you do it however you want. It has to be, it can't be too short, or it's just not going to work. It seats on the inside. Actually, I don't think it even touches the insert, so it's going to be just short of the insert on the inside, and it's being held in place by the knock in the back, making it with the tape. Now, what I did originally with this to get a good idea of what I'm working with, I think I went 1/8 of an inch longer, or maybe more, and mark that with your thumb there on the inside of that knock, and then come out, put your insert in, because they might be different depending on what kind of arrow you got, or the inserts might be different. So glue the insert in first. When you've got the length that you want, just put it next to it, mark it with the marker, cut it off with your cutoff wheel, and I just like to give myself an 1/8 of an inch, a little bit more, so I don't ruin the arrow. I don't think it matters one way or another for velocity. So mark it, cut it off, and it doesn't matter if you've glued the front in, because it slides on from the back. So after that, you'll get the length that you need. You won't have to do it like that every time, obviously. What works pretty good for me too, especially if you're not going to make a bunch of arrows, is just a Harbor Freight little cutoff wheel. I found a 3-inch cutoff wheel that fits on it good enough, and it works really well.